Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
There we go. We can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, so I have Christy here, and you guys are kind of on the same subject, so I'll let you start, Christy, since you were first. And then we'll
Okay.
go into
So I had just reached out to Becky, I think it was like in November, and asked about the problem gambling funds. And the only reason I did that is because there's like 5 or 6 other counties where prevention specialists and their local coalitions are helping facilitate those funds. And I didn't know if we'd had those, I mean, if we had even accepted the funds. So I don't have a, like, I guess, agenda per se of what those, the use of the funds. I was really just curious as to if the county had accepted them or not, and if there was a need for our coalition to be involved. My 2 cents on the whole thing is I have no, I guess, black and white way of how the money should or shouldn't be spent. My thoughts are that just like any funds that I would say that the county gets through grant dollars, and like all of our prevention dollars should be, there should be a group of people to help facilitate the conversation of how that money should be spent. We're up kind of against a deadline because the money has to be spent by the end of June, right? The end of the fiscal year. So that kind of makes a difference just because, sometimes having those conversations takes time. But I think that there's an opportunity for our wellness coalition to be involved and to help facilitate those conversations with stakeholders in the communities. I know that there's I think at least 2 places in Upton that have the machines, and there's one here. I haven't done a scan to know what's out there, but I think that there's an opportunity for not only just traditional media, but some guerrilla marketing kind of things like posters and bars and some things like that. But that's not a decision that I would feel comfortable making just on my own. I think that's something that there should be a conversation with people from both communities, and whether it be our coalition or another group of stakeholders or whatever, including the commissioners, probably the city councils, whatever, to address the issue, because I don't know that we really have a lay of the land of what the scope of the problem really is. And not just for this money, but if the scope of the problem is bigger than $7,000 is going to do anything about, then we have the opportunity, if we do it right, to ask for more money if more money comes from the legislature. I haven't looked to see if there's more money that's going to be available. But we use a SPIF-SIG model. I know that's what Johnson County used when they came up with their plan to spend this money. I talked to Bill Hawley, who's my counterpart there yesterday. And I also visited with Kirk County yesterday. Kirk County is using their funds to go to the VOA, so used to be Northern Wyoming Mental Health, to provide training for their clinicians. So they have some different training to help people when they come looking for services. So there's a lot of different opportunities out there. Partnering with the Wyoming Council on Problem Gambling, which is based out of Buffalo, is another option that several counties are doing. So I guess just be a lack of a better word.
Good. Quick question, Chris. The other counties that, how are they using their funds for? You say Crook County using for the VOA.
Yeah, so Johnson County is using some for media, some is print and digital media. And then I think Bill told me about 70% of theirs, because they got more than we did, is being used for that. And then the rest, that other 30%, is being used for the exact kind of similar thing that Kirk County is doing, to provide training for clinicians, and then also providing, they call them lunch and learns. It's kind of like what we're doing with like the high potency THC and the kratom presentations that our coalition is doing, where they're just providing information to community members or stakeholders in the community about the issue. And they're partnering with the Wyoming Council on Problem Gambling for that. So I know those 2 specifically. Like, I don't know for sure what like Teton County is doing. I know that they're partnering with the Wyoming Council, and I know there are some counties that just didn't even take the money. So that I talked to when I was in DC last week.
But
You're working with these people directly. How do you feel is the best way to get in contact with them, to get to the contact the people who are needing the help?
Well, I think it's kind of like when we do anything, kind of like with our suicide prevention lifeline or like our Wyoming Quit Tobacco. It's kind of in the places where they are. We've had really good luck with things like car coasters or, magnets that are stuck on things on bathroom stalls. I mean, you kind of got to meet people where they're at and when they think they might need the help. And so those kind of non-traditional things are things that in the past, I have no idea about the gambling piece, but when we've done things like tobacco cessation or suicide prevention or those things, I mean, those kind of niches. One of the best things we ever did was hanging things in the bathroom stalls in high school. Like, we got more hits on stuff doing that than we did on anything else. In the 20 years I've been doing this, that we ever did. So it's kind of random, and that's why I say just asking people, in the community.
Christy, when you say the coalition, is that the 21 Wellness?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
And that's a broad range of different folks
It's
that
a
are
broad
involved with
spectrum.
that. Schools.
There's 63 people on our listserv list that get our information. About 6 to 8 of them come to our monthly meetings, but that ranges from all of you guys to all both school districts, law enforcement in both towns and the counties. VOA is pretty active, probation and parole, children's center. I mean, it's kind of a gamut. Some business owners too.
any other questions? Bob, if you want to jump in and your portion of this?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I provided a proposal that actually the Johnson County folks put together with my business partner in Buffalo that I presented to you guys. I'm a little frustrated that we're at this point, and I heard Christy say we're up against a deadline. Now, I formally chaired that committee and we're very active on it. It was called 21 Wellness. And have been very active in this effort in Weston County for 2 decades. On March 31st of last year, I emailed Christy about this with the Buffalo proposal and what Buffalo was moving forward with. And she at that time told me that she was going to wait for direction from the county commission. I heard nothing until January, and I reached out to the commission chair and said, I knew a deadline was coming up, and said, have you guys heard anything about this? And Chairman Taylor told me that he recalled hearing something about this, but that nobody had ever appeared, that nobody had ever seemed too concerned about it. It took him a while I said, well, I've got a proposal ready to go. I just need to know how much money the county has so I can tailor the proposal to it. And what I did, what you have in front of you is the Johnson County print proposal. And I added what you all are familiar with, which is our digital add-on package. It's a 6-month proposal that would blanket Weston County, and as one of you noted last time I was before you, and well beyond, because my reach goes well beyond Weston County. And these are state funds, so in this case, I would have to say that's very considerable plus. Normally, I agree. I was ready to work through this process last March and April. That is the way it's been done in the past. It's sort of ironic. The Newsletter Journal's been left out of this process for the last couple of years.
Bob, that's not true, because your staff is on my listserv, so don't say you've been left out of this process. Your staff is on my listserv, so don't go there.
Well, when did I come off? I have the same email that I had when I was there. Why was I removed?
You're on there still.
Well, look, we're not here to debate that. Let's
my
move on.
presentation is, I asked about this in March, and nothing was done until I brought it up again in January. You're now up against a hard deadline. I have an exceptional proposal in front of you. I discounted it by over $1,500 in a desire to get this out and get it done. At least one family that I know of in Weston County has been impacted tragically by this already. The fact that nothing was done and that we're up against a deadline now, it's certainly not my problem, but I have a solution.
How do you feel?
And I'm willing to answer any questions about my proposal.
I just want to clarify that when Bob reached out to me, I knew nothing about the funds, so I don't want to be the pawn in the middle of this game by any means. I have no problem. I mean, Bob and I have worked together on a lot of things. I don't have a budget anymore to do media like I used to, which is the reason why we don't do a lot of media. We've been running media, print media in both newspapers for our latest work, just because that's what we have a budget for. I don't think there's an issue with the proposal by any means. My concern is that we're missing a target, a large percentage of the population by only using one media source and online. I think that there is something to be said for there being things posted and placed where those machines are at. I mean, those machines are not, I mean, I am not an expert on gambling by any means. I'm better off to throw $20 out the window on my way to Deadwood to actually do it. But I think that there's things that we can do where those machines are placed to help with some of those issues. That doesn't change things like, you know, the online betting and all of that. I mean, that's a much bigger issue, but I think it should be multifaceted.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say that the online gambling is probably the focus of this and where the biggest problems do exist. So the online package that I put in front of you would reach that specific target market. And some of the ads you see specifically address the online gambling. Most of them do. Where this is a problem for people is when they get in trouble on their phones, just like a lot of people do with a lot of things in this day and age. And so I would suggest that the machines, you know, I'd throw in $500 worth of coasters or whatever print products. If 21 Wellness would like to put something like that together for me, I'd certainly throw that in and have the capability of doing that with my business as well. And would be ready to go and could incorporate what we've got already right there. I would add that. That would bring me up to over $2,000 and I'm discounting to the county in an effort to get this done because it needs to be done. But I can't move any more than that.
I think from my understanding from reading all of the paperwork, is the funds have to be expended by June 30th. So basically billed for and spent out.
Commissioner?
Would you be willing, if he put in like coasters or something, would you guys be willing to put those out? If he was willing to work with you?
Yeah, I will. I mean, the coalition meets the same day every month, same time, the fourth Tuesday of every month.
Well, I would say,
noon, and so we can talk about that at our next meeting.
We have a deadline coming up, and if we don't spend it, we're not going to get more. That's the unfortunate thing about this. If we do have a need, I'm sure, as all the other counties do, with the new gambling machines. We're always going to have a problem with that. There's always going to be people in need of help. So, you know, I feel like Mr. Bonner put this together in good faith to do some, it looks like some very nice ads and things online that perhaps somebody will see and take advantage of. And maybe the Wellness Commission next year can be more involved and do something different. But because we have a deadline coming up, I think we need to seriously consider Mr. Bonner's proposal.
Commissioner Todd?
So I would like to invite the Weston County Gazette. I mean, are you guys interested in advertising too and opting for this? or something along these lines?
Well, yeah, sure, of course we would, yeah, and I can't speak for the publisher, but, 21 Wellness is very proactive at advertising in those papers.
Yeah. I guess personal feeling on it, I would rather it left in the hands of a professional and then everybody get together to figure out a way to divvy it up. I don't think, talking June, it's not it's not tomorrow, but.
To clarify, you mean to put it in her hands?
Yeah.
When you said the professional.
Well, not necessarily all in Christie's hands, maybe more in the coalition's hands, to then make a decision, and if they want to use it all in the newsletter journal, if that's what we decide is best, or they decide is best, I don't have a problem with that. I just think it then at least gives a few people to get their foot in the door to have a week or two to decide if there's something valuable that they could add to the community.
Yeah, for Commissioner Todd, I'd like, whatever direction the coalition decides, I would be in support of that, because I don't gamble, I don't know where it would be the best, with the coalition, they know, and they've seen where they got the most bang for their buck, and where their campaign worked the best, so I'd be in favor of, letting the coalition decide, and wherever they decide it needs to be spent, that's where I would go with it.
Does everybody know, is this the first year that the proposals, and is this a new process?
Like as far as the gambling funds
Well,
go,
yes,
or
yes.
I mean, I think, like, several of the counties started working on it last summer, I think. And so I think it was just a process of however those funds, because like Kirk County was just saying they were just working on theirs. So I think it just kind of depended. I don't know how that worked. So there are some counties that have been working on it for longer than us.
The reason why
but-
I'm asking is everyone aware that they can send a proposal in, for example, and apply for these funds in benefit of Wellness 21, or is this only a select few knew about it to even
As far
submit a
as these
proposal?
funds?
Or a
Well, so,
proposal?
I mean, I didn't solicit anything, I just asked when I think November, when I was here, like, if the funds had even been secured. So we haven't talked about it from a coalition perspective, because until, I don't know, when was that, January was when, Becky let me know that, yes, you guys were going to receive the funds. So as far as us like soliciting proposals or any of those things, the coalition hasn't even had a conversation about this money. It was definitely something we can add to the agenda for the meeting in 2 weeks. That's not an issue by any means. But yeah, the coalition hasn't had a conversation at all, because until a few weeks ago, I didn't even know that the money had been received, which is why, I mean, I had not responded to Bob because I didn't even know you guys had the money. So, or if I was going to be, which is what I had told Bob in the beginning, I didn't even know if the coalition or if I was going to be involved in the money. So, and honestly, it wasn't until Nick had been at the meeting and said, hey, because Nick is a part of our coalition as well, saying, hey, the money is going to be available, you might touch base. And so that's when I touched base with Becky the first time. So.
But I definitely, I'm grateful that Bob put a proposal together, but I kind of think since it's in June and we're talking about it, even if we push this to old business or decide to let you guys handle it, however, an opportunity could be given for someone to submit a proposal that wasn't able to, but, obviously it seems as both newspapers are part of that same coalition.
Right.
So I just was curious why that wouldn't have happened, somebody knew
Right.
something.
Yeah, and that's exactly why, because we didn't, I mean, the coalition hasn't even had a conversation about it. We didn't even know if we were gonna be the ones being involved in the funds. And typically, the way that works for the coalition is, like, when we get together and we're planning something, we're planning this education series that we're doing, it's a matter of, okay, so how's the best way for us to get the word out? So a lot of times that's social media. Most recently, it's been ads on KASL, and it has been ads in both newspapers, print ads in both newspapers.
Commissioner Todd?
Just out of curiosity, Christie, do you think with the 2 weeks notice, if this was allocated to that coalition, would you guys have the ability to spend 7,500 roughly, isn't it? It's not much more than that, but to allocate that at that meeting and decide if it's
I think
Newsletter Journal
so,
and
because I guess
whoever
what I would, just kind of thinking quickly in my head would invite, it would be great to have, a commissioner and then, if Nick is there to represent the town of Upton, and very seldom do we have someone to represent the city of Newcastle, but that would be great if we did. And then, a couple of those probably bar owners, the newspaper staff, and then our regular coalition members, just to reach out specifically to them and say, hey, we're gonna be having this conversation. This is the main topic of conversation. We'd like for you to be a part of it. Can't make them be there, but definitely an invite to be there and be a part of the conversation, and then for us to decide at that point what the best way moving forward would be.
All right. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you know, if I may, I'm hearing all this. Now, as I put this together in my head, it seems to me that the county clerk contacted Christie about this after I contacted you about it. So who knows how far down the road we'd gotten before anybody would have addressed this.
When I
Am I
find,
wrong?
no, what you were right about is, as I told you when I talked to you, is I saw an email that had Christie's name on it, and I didn't realize it wasn't from Christie. Your name was on it, so then that's how that came about. I didn't know anything really about this until that point. So I only read part of the email, and I thought, well, somebody needs to know the amount of the money. And I actually thought originally it was Christie, but when I read the email, it was your request, so that's why I got you the amount from Becky.
And I do appreciate that. I just, I'm struggling a little bit. I'm struggling a lot right now with, you know, you ask how do people know about this? This was written about in the Cheyenne Cap News. I mean, there were news outlets all over Wyoming that carried stories about these funds. And I shared one of those stories on March 31st with Christy last year. And she said at that time that she didn't know if she'd be involved at all. And I waited, saw other stories come out. Another one came out in Gillette then in the fall. And that's when I sent the email and approach to, I guess you know, at the Wellness Coalition, I'm concerned about the Wellness Coalition. I notified Christy in March that this was out there. You could read about it in any newspaper.
So Bob, what are you asking then?
I would
Because
suggest, I really struggle with any suggestion that we should real quick throw a bunch of people together and try and come up with something when I've been working on this with my partner for over 10 months and have invited others to participate. And now all of a sudden when I raise, you might be, if I wouldn't have sent that email to the chairman asking about this conversation might not be happening till February, March, April. I don't know when somebody was gonna, whether it was Ms. Lipp or the county clerk, when somebody was gonna take the initiative to meet this deadline. So any attempt right now to quickly throw something together seems like a great deal of effort to, I don't know, do what, when you have a professional proposal from someone who's been working on this issue for close to a year now.
Bob,
in front of you.
and I appreciate the proposal. I don't think, you know, putting it off for 2 weeks is you know, making sure everybody's on the same page. I'm not suggesting that the proposal isn't good, and I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't get it. What I'm suggesting is that we put it off for 2 weeks to make sure everybody's on the same page, and let the wellness, what do we call it, Wellness Coalition, let them decide how they're gonna spend it, and then we go from there. So I am definitely not against it going to the Newsletter Journal. I just think that we need to be looking at it in a way that, hey, is there a way we can do it better? This might be the best proposal that we get. That's all I'm saying. And it's really up to the board at this point. So. Go ahead, Commissioner Todd.
I'll make a
So
motion.
do I have to present to the Wellness Coalition, Mr. Chairman? Are you required, or would I still be presenting my proposal to the commission?
I'm
Does
not,
the commission get it?
yeah, let's see what the board says, and then we'll figure out a game plan from there. Go ahead.
I would like to make a motion to allot the gambling funds to the Wellness Coalition in a fair attempt for a bunch of professionals to get together to best decide how this money is spent.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? Go ahead, Commissioner.
I guess I have a problem with that, in that I don't have a problem waiting 2 weeks and perhaps giving them the opportunity to discuss it and come back with a proposal like Bob gave us. But I don't feel comfortable just giving them the money when someone else came to us with a legitimate proposal to use it in a proper way. I think that would be bias on our part.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Just so everyone knows, Christy approached me in November wanting to be in charge of these funds. She just didn't know when to be on the agenda. Dawn contacted me in January, let me know that Christy had asked if all of these
Who I
funds
thought
had been
was-
spent.
Yep.
I contacted Christy in an email, let her know that the funds had not been spent, she asked then if she could be put on the agenda. Dawn then contacted me, told me that it was not Christy, that it was Bob Bonner. Christy approached me long before this proposal was put together, clear back in November. So just to clarify, that Christy did approach me in November.
But no one's come forward with a proposal like Mr. Bonner. So I feel like just handing funds over to 21 Wellness perhaps isn't very fair at this point.
I would, go ahead.
Question for Commissioner Todd, where, in your motion, are you allowing the 21 Coalition to expend those funds or put a proposal together and present that to the commission?
I'd say let them expend it. They're the professionals in the county with this kind of, these kind of issues. And if they choose Bob's proposal in 2 weeks, they can let him know. I don't think it's a bad proposal. And if they choose to take $1,000 and do something else with it and only run 5 months of ads with Bob, so be it, whatever. I think they're probably a better caretaker of those funds than I am, not knowing addiction issues within the county.
I think it should be acknowledged that he has obviously put a lot of work into it, and then he was on it, so maybe that's in consideration, but I don't see where 2 weeks for them to decide, now that everybody seems to be on the same page, is an issue. And I think you should consider the fact that he spent the time on it, but that's just my opinion. So we have a motion on the floor. Any amendments to that, or are we leaving it alone? No more discussion? All right, so we'll put it back on the old agenda, and then all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
I'm in motion. I'm gonna say nay on this one. If you'll please come back before us in 2 weeks and let us know the outcome, I appreciate it.
Okay, so you want me to,
I'd like you to work, me and the board would like you to work as professionals to decide what's the best use for this
Okay.
money, and if it's Bob Bonner, great, and
come back on March 5th,
If you
if I
could,
was looking
please.
at my calendar, right?
yes.
Is that right? No?
It's the
Oh, it's
20
not every other
It's
calendar, right?
the 20th.
20th.
Okay, so our next meeting is not until the 27th
Oh,
of February. I can try to put a group of people together prior to then.
And that's for the interest of getting it solved and,
Right.
you know, it's, June's gonna come around fast and for fairness towards, these
Right.
newsletter journal.
So, I mean, that's our next scheduled meeting. I can do my best to try to get a group of people together. Is there someone from the Board of Commissioners that would like to be a part of that conversation?
So, you part of that?
When do you meet?
Well, we usually meet at noon on that fourth Tuesday. But if we're going to be doing it prior to the meeting on the 20th, it'll have to be next month.
If you could, perhaps, if you get a meeting put together in email, email all of us the time and date. We'll try to get at least one of us there or more.
Okay. And then come back on the 20th.
Okay.
We would do that.
Anything else?
I would just invite you all Thursday at noon, if you're available, to come. We have a presentation on it's making drug trends, but it is really based on a lot of the herbal supplements that are being sold in our convenience stores. So kratom, kava, that all produce opioid-like effects. You can pick them up at Shortstop, and you can pick them up at Maverick, so they're readily available in our community. Lunch is being provided. It's at noon at the Newcastle Lodge, and then in Upton at 6 o'clock at the high school commons.
Thank you. Thank you for your proposal, Bob.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good day, everybody.
Yes.
Be in touch.
Keep moving forward. Nathan, did you?
I guess, maybe Christie wants me to read this because I attended the meeting. I didn't attend it in any aspect to decide where the funds went, but I just watched, basically. So, you had Andrea Gregory, the WDOC.
Oh, the other one first.
Oh, sorry. Okay. First, Christy wanted us to know that she apologized for not being here, and she did call in and said that she had a previous Newcastle FFA chapter on Tuesday morning judging deal that she already had it scheduled for this time frame. So here's some bullet points I guess she wants me to put out there. After further reviewing statute 924-104, which provides for probable gambling funds, it is evident that Weston County will be given the opportunity to accept these funds on an annual basis. This will allow continued efforts in not only educating our residents and stakeholders, but in furthering efforts with local healthcare providers to provide treatment opportunities for those in need. Another bullet point, I would recommend that, for example, March is Problem Gambling Awareness Month, so it would make sense that media and education during the month reflects that. Organize and facilitate trainings and learning events, continue assessing the nature of the problem in our communities, build capacity among stakeholders, and plan and implement strategies to address problem gambling. Should the Commission plan to continue accepting these funds to address this issue in Weston County, the work group would report to the Commissioners on a quarterly basis on progress and use of funds. Third bullet point is there is a need for connecting resources and educating the community about problem gambling more than what these funds can provide. Just creating an education and awareness campaign is not enough. When I visited with Adelaide Wilson at the Wyoming Council on Problem Gambling, she paralleled the issue with the work that we have done in substance abuse and suicide prevention over the past 20 years. And the initial stages are educating the community and letting them know that the problem exists, but we have to continue having conversations about the issue, just as we do every month at our coalition meetings about alcohol, nicotine, illicit drugs, and suicide. And we must work on an ongoing basis to learn more and address the issue with the resources at hand. Utilizing the Strategic Prevention Framework model from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, which we also use for the other addictive substances we deal with, makes the most sense. It also it allows us the ability to weave issues like problem gambling into the strategies that we use to address issues of substance abuse, mental health disorders, and suicide. Another bullet point she found is, I've done some more research and I do not believe we're under a time crunch to spend these dollars. These funds are not grant dollars and an MOU is not signed. Just an acceptance of funds letter was signed. I do not see anywhere that states there's a date at which funds need to be expended. So now I'm gonna read the meeting, I guess, that I attended. Andrea Gregory from Probation and Parole, Mr. Bonner from Newsletter Journal, Ms. Trandle from Weston County Gazette, Ms. Terry from the VOA, Mr. Humberson, from the VOA, Mr. Trandle from 21 Wellness Coalition, Town of Upton, and Ms. Christie Litt. After taking into account that the funds provided by the Wyoming Department of Health are, in quotes, are to be distributed to counties for the purpose of funding county health programs to prevent and treat problematic gambling behavior, the work group decided on a multifaceted approach to spend the funds provided to Weston County pursuant to Wyoming Statute 924-104. Because the group felt strongly that the treatment side of problem gambling needs to be addressed with these funds, as well as the prevention side, this approach will address prevention through education for the citizens of Weston County via media and learning opportunities, and treatment through education of local treatment providers and professionals. Working with all three local media outlets, KSL, Newsletter Journal, Weston County Gazette, and Wyoming Council on Problem Gambling, the funds will be used to provide print, radio, and digital media, as well as launch and learn events to raise awareness of the scope of problem gambling in our Weston County communities. The events would include general info regarding problem gambling and info specific to Wyoming. Media would be focused on raising awareness while also creating a call to action by sharing local contact info for the VOA and the 24-hour National Gambling Hotline. The Wyoming Council on Problem Gambling will also provide group training that is designed for prevention specialists, mental health providers, medical professionals, etc. This training offers more in-depth training on problem gambling versus disordered gambling and the integration of problem gambling with substance abuse disorder intake assessments. And I guess through the breakdown of the funds of what they thought would be a good choice of use, and this is the part I didn't take part in. And this was highlighted with based on the funds being spent by June 30th. A $725 lunch and learn event with the Wyoming Council on Problem Gambling. Each 50-minute session is $100 plus the cost of refreshments. These sessions do not have to necessarily be held over lunch. They could be morning or afternoon as well. Sessions would be held in both Upton and Newcastle. An $800 training for providers and professionals by the Wyoming Council on Problem Gambling. Each 90-minute training is $250 plus $35 per participant, and CEUs are available. I don't know what that is. One training is planned in the one training is planned in the training fee and participant fees, as well as refreshments will be covered with the available funds. $5,496 to media with KSL, Newsletter Journal, Weston County Gazette. KSL $720 with $180 per month times 4 months. 30 second ads per month, March, April, May, and June. Oh, 30 second, okay, sorry. 30 individual, 30 second ads. The Newsletter Journal, $2,500. $605 per month times 4 months, March, April, May, and June. 417 in digital ads per month, 188 one color ad per month. This is a rough idea based off the digital component in the Newsletter Journal's proposal and the rate from a recent ad for the THC presentation by the 21 Wellness Coalition. The Newsletter Journal would create a plan based on a $2,500 budget. Weston County Gazette, $2,500. 15 print advertisements at $2,200. 15 social media spots at $150, and 15 website banners at $150. Weston County Gazette has provided a proposal for the above mentioned items to fit within the $2,500 budget. And I will attest to Ms. Lipp's research. I've read the statute the other day. There is no literature on a time frame. So this is no emergency. And here's a copy of the email I received that there is not a deadline for the county to expend these funds. So if anybody would like to see it.
Personally, I like this approach better. I mean, it's hitting several marketing groups. It's getting some training for some of the individuals that are dealing with these cases. What Christy outlined there, I really feel like would be getting a lot of bang for our buck in a lot of different market areas.
Just on behalf of the Weston County Gazette, I appreciate you guys taking the time to look over our proposal, and I think it's, like Commissioner Wagner said, ideal to involve all media. And also, you know, I was at that meeting as well, and it does seem there is some lack of training for the professionals in this department. I mean, they're trained in alcohol abuse and how to handle those individuals and how to move forward with that, but as far as gambling addiction training, they could definitely use some. And I think this money, and it's outlined in the grant letter, that it needs to go towards training as well, and not just advertising.
Great.
Is this, is this an actual request to a proposal
I think,
coming from them?
I think what it is I made a motion last meeting to let public health manage the funds and decide what to do with the funds on their behalf, and whether that was advertising or whatever. I think that's what they have put together, basically. Nick, you were part of that meeting. I mean, that's kind of the gist of this, right?
Yeah, well, from what I understand, the last commission, you directed Christie to put together a proposal.
Yeah.
So I think you should just.
Yeah, and my motion failed, and then Dawn asked to have her come back in 2 weeks with a proposition.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying. That's my understanding. See, Mr. Bonner's on there. Did you want to say anything, Mr. Bonner? You're on mute. Can't hear you. No, I can't hear you. I see everything on the board mute, but I don't know. You want to try logging back in? Okay, we'll give you a minute.
I didn't know we had a gambling problem in this town. I mean, I don't know. We're just training people.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just didn't know we had a gambling problem.
Well, I think it's for the prevention, so we don't have it, make it available so that people that might have an issue, or start an issue, to not have one. Go ahead.
So, I'm going to make a statement because I'm not a professional, paid professional, but for 34 years I've worked with people with substance abuse and addiction problems. And you know what? I've worked with 12-step programs, and they don't charge anything. So what I'm seeing is a bunch of newspapers and stuff trying to get their hands on a bunch of money to run advertisements. I've never seen anybody well, I won't say ever. But people in the throes of addiction are not gonna go to a paper 90% of the time and read something, or they're not gonna go to a bar with a coaster on it, feeding one addiction while they contemplate the other addiction. Oh, here's a thing, or I'm at a urinal, here's a sticker. I don't know where these people are paid professionals. I spent 34 years in the addiction business, and I haven't been paid a cent. But I'll guarantee you I can reach more people. I haven't heard anybody in these proposals even mention Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm not representing it, Gamblers Anonymous, NA Anonymous, any 12-step programs that doesn't cost the county a cent. And they're right here operating as far as substance abuse programs, right here in this county. They're operating. Why don't you post newspaper ads directing the people to the 12-step program where the real professionals are? The people that struggle with the disease, overcome the disease, found the solution, and can help others, and they're not going to charge you a cent. All I see is a bunch of newspaper people, and I'm sorry, trying to get a hold of $5 grand to run ads, and I don't think it'd be productive at all. Thank you. And then I remember Mr. Bonner, I believe, and I don't want to misquote you, but I think 2 weeks ago you said that you knew of one family that had a problem with this solution, or had a problem that you know of. And if I'm wrong about that, but I think that's what you said.
We've added this to old business, so the discussion's ongoing, and I don't want you to misrepresent these funds, Stan. You just probably don't know. This isn't coming out of the county coffers. This is funds that's gained from people gambling in Weston County at local establishments. And by statute, the state is sending some of those funds that those companies earn off of those gambling plays come back to the counties, and they have to be used for prevention. So we're going to do it in old business.
I get it. And I recognize that. I just, first, a state legalizes an addiction. I'm sure there was people that were down in Cheyenne saying, if you do this, there's going to be problems. But, you know, the money was more important than the addiction. And now we've got a whole bunch of specialists, or professionals, as you call them, that are in the addiction business. So thank you.
Well, and Stan, just as a newspaper perspective, it's our job to put the information out there and educate the public on what's available.
Are you advertising? Well, I think you do advertise for AAB, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we have it in our calendar.
Do you direct any ad stuff?
How do you mean?
In other words, do you post ads in your ad section directing people to the 12-step program?
Unless we get the information, no.
If you did, though, you would?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Bonner.
All right, can you hear me this time, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. I would just briefly thank you to Mr. Krasinski for his comments. We've carried, when notified of the AA meetings, Al-Anon meetings, we've always carried those for free in our community calendar. That's all the answer I can give you on that. When you know about it, we do share that information for free.
You're right. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank Commissioner Todd for his summary. And I continue to bring forward my proposal. I did not agree with the rest of the group in the direction they wanted to go. I'd like to continue to advocate that the commissioners exercise their right to accept my proposal and award it instead. I'll briefly go over my reasons for that. First and foremost, what the proposal I've given you is a $9,000 value for only $7,200. Nobody else has talked about maximizing the amounts that you're going to receive from this, and actually adding value from $7,200 to $9,000. Part of the reason I'm able to do that is because my partner Rob Hicks people already did the graphic design, so that saved a considerable amount of money and time. Second point, this is an opportunity, as Mr. Krasinski pointed out, this is an opportunity to market mental health advocacy and addiction support in Weston County, which is not happening. That's not being marketed. Nobody knows that BOA or Focus or 21 Wellness even exist right now. We heard Christy say a couple of weeks ago that she has no marketing budget. This is an opportunity to put those entities in front of people. If they would like to use this campaign, I encourage the BOA people to do so. and I did ask BOA people to give me their QR codes and their links. I'd love to link their information to these advertisements. Even just as a gambling awareness campaign, just letting people know there's a mental health facility in town goes a long ways towards helping people with their problems. The third point I want to make is that Commissioner Todd brought up professionalism in the last meeting. I thought appropriately so. The newsletter journal brings a marketing expertise and muscle that nobody else in Weston County can even come close to. We've won dozens of state and national awards for advertising and public service, and have over 60 years of experience in marketing, public relations, and community service. We're committed to updating our training annually, and have developed into the county's most modern and engaging media company, with the largest print and digital followings in all of Northeast Wyoming. As compared to the other folks that were in that coalition meeting the other day, 21 Wellness doesn't even have a website, and in 20 years, they've only grown their email list to 63 people. Those are hardly marketing success stories. The Facebook page is also inconsistent and shows very low rates of engagement. The last 21 Wellness event, according to Christie, only drew attendees in Newcastle and 8 in Upton. And that's quite simply because there were only 1 or 2 ads promoting the event. There had been nothing beforehand, very little said. 21 Wellness is not very visible in the community right now. And I think this is an opportunity to really put a positive push on the mental health resources that are available and promote those to the community. Similarly, probation and parole was present in the meeting. They have no background in marketing or public relations. Volunteers of America was very interesting because they also have not established any advertising or marketing in the community. They, however, reported that they did train 2 employees in gambling addiction, but they never provided the service to a single client because the service was never advertised. One of those employees is now moved, and there is 1 remaining there who has specific gambling addiction training, and of course a full staff of counselors who can handle any kind of addiction services. So the training, I think, is a much lower need than was represented in Christie's proposal. And finally, the Weston County Gazette, I heard in their proposal that they're offering a banner website ad as part of that proposal. But if you look at their site, there's no banner ad on it. I've never seen an ad on their website. So that would be something new. There's no real expertise in that area. I'm sure it's something they could do, but to be frank, they haven't done it yet. The newsletter journal has presented professionalism, commitment, and leadership in the mental health advocacy and addiction services field for decades. We are professionals in this area. We bring issues of concern to the forefront of public awareness in Weston County and have displayed editorial leadership and commitment to the community's welfare by confronting such problems as suicide, drunk driving, drug abuse, and tobacco cessation. We constantly monitor a number of different platforms to stay knowledgeable about these things, and have written dozens of stories, columns, and editorials over the past 25 years to keep the community informed and engaged. We've actively participated in suicide awareness training, tips training, and tobacco cessation programs. And I even presented on suicide awareness with the state prevention folks at a previous Wyoming Press Association state convention. I don't believe Christie or the group she put together ever seriously considered my proposal or its merits. While Christie did say she had 63 people on her email list, she only invited 5 to the meeting besides she and myself and the commissioners. There were 2 representatives of BOA, the Upton mayor, and chief of police, and a representative of probation and parole. The Upton chief did not show up, and neither did the state person Christie said she had invited. But there was an extra representative of the Weston County Gazette there, as well as Commissioner Todd. In short, there wasn't a single representative of Newcastle government invited to the meeting, and with the exception of Ms. Gregory, the other 4 people who were on the meeting were all offered financial incentive, either in the form of training or their own marketing dollars, to support Christie's proposal. Finally, it can be frustrating to sit in the seat you all are sitting in now, because you find out that you have little actual power or control over other public servants or what they do with their budgets. But I would submit that this is an opportunity for you to demonstrate a desire to produce better results and a higher level of accountability for the people of Weston County by choosing the proposal that is quite simply the best one in front of you. I ask the commissioners to reward excellence, initiative, and professionalism, and accept my proposal. And I stand ready to answer any questions.
Thank you, Bob. I'm gonna throw it back at the board. What's your pleasure? I understand. I want you to know that, your proposal is good, and you had it in a timely manner. I think the goal was just to get everybody on the same page and see if there was multiple ways to attack this problem. So that's my input on it, but I'll leave it to the board to decide. Commissioner Todd?
I'm just curious, is Drew waiting on us?
Yes, I just.
So I wondered, we've heard the
Yeah.
sales pitches, can we address this in old business?
Yes, we're gonna move this to old business because we have one waiting, and we have also, we have to deal with, a couple other issues that this has run a little bit long on. So if you don't mind, Bob, we're gonna push this to old business and we'll pick it back up there so we can, move people along, okay?
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll return then.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I know. I guess we jump back into this Wellness 21 deal, and then we'll go to both sides of the HR. So we're back on for the Wellness 21 issue. And what's the pleasure of the board? Mr. Bonner, if you're still there, we're going back to that. Can you hear me?
I'm still here, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner.
I guess for myself, because we just got this information, I would like to maybe table this and let us look at both both proposals, and then come back next time and vote on it.
Are we making a motion for that? Go ahead, Commissioner.
I don't think that's a problem. But I would like, just for the reason I asked for the brief period, there's some highlights that I wanted to say that of what other counties are doing with the funds real quick. And there's marketing and education to include local media, fact sheets, posters, development of a county-specific employee support guide for businesses, employers, the development of local websites, work with adult treatment court to screen for problematic gambling behavior and refer to treatment, work with local mental health center providers to fund training and treating patients with problematic gambling behavior. And another thought that Angie and I batted with each other was a lot of these folks that might have addiction problems, there could be issues with funding, even getting treatment, because it's not free to go to the VOA, and a way to potentially help bank that for those folks, and which I don't want to be in purview of something like that. I would prefer that would be something that public health would monitor. But there's very few of the counties have actually expended the funding to this point, is from what Angie told me. There's a lot of I guess, guidance, because this is a new thing.
Do you want
I'd like to make a motion to table this issue and allow us to look at the information that Commissioner Todd brought forth from the meeting and compare it to Mr. Bonner's, and then make a decision.
Are we okay for the next meeting, or what time frame you guys want to put on it? Go ahead, Commissioner.
No, go ahead. Let her finish.
I'll say at the next meeting.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
I have a motion properly seconded. Discussion.
The only problem I have with this is, what this rings to me is funding for mental health use, not funding for the county commissioners decide what the funding goes to necessarily, but to allocate it to a professional that we have to then figure out how those funds are best expended within the county to be used. I mean, I'm not, I like Veer's idea, I do, but I also don't like the idea of on a yearly basis, we're getting these funds and then we make the decision with how they get spent necessarily. I think we have a professional in place. It's similar to me then going down to the fair board and telling them that I'm gonna tell you how to spend your funds, I guess. That's kind of how I feel with these funds, I guess, but.
Any other discussion?
Can I just say something real quick, because Mr. Bonner's here and I want to, so I apologize for coming in a little hot on this topic a little earlier. I'm 68, I spent half my life dealing with this stuff, so I'm very passionate. But yes, to Mr. Bonner's credit, the Newsletter Journal does advertise, I know for sure, my meeting that I conduct here twice a week, and KSL Radio does the same for free. So I want you to acknowledge that I really appreciate that because it's important. So again, sorry, but thank you.
Any other discussion? So there's a motion to say we're going to table it for the next meeting. It's been seconded. Nothing else. We'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Bonner, I think this is a good way to look at both because your new proposal is a little different from your other one. And I agree that getting the whole community involved is important. So we're going to postpone it for 2 weeks while we review it, and then we'll figure out where we're going to go with it. I think there's some merit to what Commissioner Todd's saying that, I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I mean, I can't go into a hospital and say, should we do heart surgery? I don't know. I'm not an expert at this. I mean, I'm familiar with addiction very much with my own stepson. But if I had the answers, he wouldn't be addicted anymore. So that's where I stand with that. So we'll bring this up again. Please join us at the next meeting and we'll go from there.
I will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Will you do you have copies of these? So that could be emailed to everybody? And then email, maybe, I'll send you a copy of the one that Ms. Hooten sent to me so that you can, unless you guys are okay with just reading it, but, or I'll forward this one to you guys. So.
Okay, that would be great.
Moving on to 21 Wellness, Christy. Hi, Christy.
Hello.
Can you state your name?
Oh, yeah. Christy Litt, Community Prevention Specialist.
Usually I don't have a problem with that.
Oh, okay.
I'm just here to answer any questions or anything that you guys have since I wasn't able to be here last time.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's questions or comments or anything that I can answer. I guess that's what I'm here for.
We were putting it back on the agenda because we were figuring out where these funds were going to go and how we were going to disperse them. And we put it back on the agenda this time. So where we got with that, that's the board's decision.
I know you have this proposal on where it went to. Are you pretty comfortable with the way it dispersed? You get a lot of more bang for your buck that way?
So just after visiting with some of the other counties, and then revisiting that statute and the way that's worded with prevention and treatment, I really feel like we need to include the treatment piece in there. First of all, that's the way the statute's written. And that's where the point of that money is to help people who, are struggling with gambling. And the people that were a part of that stakeholder group, that's why they were a part of that stakeholder group, is because they work with people who have problem gambling issues. And so I think that if we can help them to build their skill set and then continue. I mean, this is really just a starting point, if you think of it that way, because every year the county is, you have the ability to accept those funds every year, right? Because that's the way the statute's written. So we start, and I think I kind of mentioned it in my comments, that we start with education and then continue to build from there and figure out how we can help people, treat the issue. Treatment is a huge thing for Weston County in general, whether it be substance abuse addiction or whatever, because we just have a lack of resources and access to care. And so however we can help, if that ends up being like vouchers to help people pay for treatment or whatever, as we move that process forward, I think that's really important. We just totally used the model that we use for everything else we do with our prevention funding. And that's kind of the process in getting people's feedback and then going that route. So I think that no matter what happens, it should be prevention and treatment oriented both. But that's just, my 2 cents.
Have you, on the gambling side of that deal, have you seen much of that coming through your office, through the group?
Just from the conversations I've had with a few people, like Andrea, she couldn't be here because we're actually in the middle of a national coalition academy. We're in a 4-day Zoom, so I left early so I could come meet with you guys. But one of the conversations we had, and I had a very similar conversation with Susan Bridge and Upton, was Andrea says, I've got people who will come, who are on my caseload who can't use their, their vice of substances or alcohol or whatever that is because they have to take a drug test. And so they know they can't, but they'll go spend their last dollar at, on one of those gambling machines, and then they don't have any money to feed their kids. So it's being seen in Weston County. I don't see it because, I don't see people on an everyday basis, like, the VOA or Andrea or, law enforcement does. But it's happening.
It's definitely out there.
Yeah, it's definitely happening, yeah.
My assumption is these problems probably go hand in hand with other problems, like you just stated. And my curiosity is leading me in a direction of, is there any avenue to create a voucher system with some of these funds to help support people that might have addiction problems? And I don't know that there's anything in there that states that I've got a drinking problem and that might go hand in hand with my gambling problem because I'm also in the bar doing both or whatever. But some of these funds could be created in a voucher program to assist people that may not have their last dollar spent on gambling or drinking or whatever issue it may be, to help fund. Michael, is there any reason that the county couldn't create a voucher program to allot 10% of the funds or 15 or whatever to help pay for these treatments for people that can't afford them?
No, I don't know off the top of my head. That's something that I have to actually look into. I don't know that statute very well. I've looked at it a couple times, but I just don't know off the top of my head.
The statute pretty much just says that a certain percentage of the funds, of the first, I think it's $300,000, from the Gambling Association will go back to the counties for prevention and treatment. We use voucher systems, and I say we in a very broad sense from Department of Health, prevention standpoint, for things like mental health access for people. There's a voucher system in place right now that's specific to people in the ag community to access mental health care. They access the vouchers. I don't know how that process works. I know it's being done. So I think that's something that could definitely, we could definitely look into. But that's something that's probably going to be, it's going to take a little more time for us to figure out, like, what does that look like? Who's going to be the steward of the money? Just so many hundreds of dollars just go to the VOA and then they dole it out that way, or how that looks.
I guess personally speaking, I wouldn't want any control of it. I would think that would be better left in the hands of you or public health, and and potentially deciding if a person is qualified to be able to accept those funds. But it just seems to me, you know, if I'm down to my last dollar, I'm not probably spending it on prevention.
You know, the prevention piece is really, that's way upstream. That's really trying to catch people, you know, and point them in a direction. But that's why I think it's so important that the prevention and the treatment side be put together. And, you know, we do the same thing, prevention and treatment work together, and all of the other things that we do as well, so.
Well, a couple questions. You talked about treatment, but then it seems vague on what you're saying for treatment. And is this treatment available in Weston County? Is this treatment, I mean, we're talking about a voucher system, but I'm sad to say that I have some experience with somebody who is an addict, and they had a voucher system at one time a few years back where they could go, and they ended up somehow cashing it in. I mean, there'd have to be a lot of controls. I feel like it's very vague what you're saying. Not that it's not needed, but would it be going outside the county and then getting people to the treatment? I mean, all those things, if this is a regular thing, need to be worked out. And I don't think, at least from what I'm understanding, we're not completely worked out on these things yet.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not.
Which then delays the process of people that need the help now. It seems like we need to put, you know, maybe it's not this year, maybe it's a start this year, and we develop the program for the next time or the next time. But treatment is also one of those things that people have to want to change and want to get help. I've seen it, like I said, I'm sad to say that I've got some experience with that with my own stepson. You know, goes to treatment to get out of jail, which reduces his jail time, gets kicked out of treatment, then he's out of jail, and then he goes back to jail because he took the treatment. And this isn't similar. Every kind of addiction has its own things, but I thought we had a proposal, or we have had proposals, what we were talking about, and those were people that were ready to move on this. And now I feel like what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of ifs and maybes and some days, and that's going to delay somebody that really needs help to get help,
So
because we don't even know how we're going to do it.
Right, if you look at the proposal that I put and then the comments, and sorry, I didn't reprint all of those things out, but the main thing is that if you're going to continue, in my opinion, if you're going to continue to accept this money on a yearly basis, this is not a, here, take this money, do something with it, and then we come back again in a year and try to figure out where we're going to go again. It needs to be a conversation that is continually had on a regular basis. And whether it's the group of people that put together the proposal that I sent to you, or it's another group of people, or however that looks, this needs to be ongoing conversation, because otherwise in a year, you're right back where you're starting and being like, okay, well now we have $7,000, what are we gonna do with it this year? If we take what we've already done and start the ball rolling, and then continue to have those conversations, then we know that this money is coming down the pipe. We have the opportunity to have conversations with the VOA or whoever it is, and help them with provide training in Weston County, because we all know that getting people somewhere out of town is a challenge in and of itself. Then in a year, we can have something ready to go when the next funding comes down the pike. That's how we operate as a coalition anyway. I'm getting ready to rewrite for another $125,000 for our DFC grant and another $208,000 for the biennium for our community prevention grant. It's not like we just now start having those conversations. We have those conversations every month when we meet, and then it's a whole lot easier when we get ready to write for that money to go, oh yeah, now we need to keep doing what we're doing, or that didn't work with crap, so now we gotta start and do something different. So I don't think that starting over is what we're talking about. I think it's a conversation of what are we going to do to keep this ball rolling and not let it grow moss.
And I agree with you. But to improve, like you said, the steps are to improve every year.
Right.
If someone comes to you now in Weston County and walks in the door here and says, hey, I need help, I'm addicted to this, and what would we do today?
Well, first of all, we're going to send them to the VOA because that's the closest we have. The unfortunate piece is, you said every addiction is different. The people at the VOA, and I have not had the opportunity to actually meet with their leadership, because the people that are that were a part of this conversation were case managers, the people who do like some of the intakes and the first step pieces. Those are not people that can make decisions for VOA. They are really the people who do the boots on the ground work. So those are conversations that we have to have with people above their pay grade, honestly, and what that looks like. But that's our closest resource. And it's either that or it's called the Problem Gambling Association. So if someone caught me in the hallway as I'm leaving and asked for help, those are the two things I'm gonna do. I'm gonna refer them to VOA, and I'm gonna give them the number for the Problem Gambling Association in Buffalo, because that's our state association and that's our next best option.
Yeah, and I get it, it's a frustrating thing, because like I said, I can drive somebody to detox and put them in there and they can walk out, or you have to Title 25 them, or I've gone through all those things with the issues that I've seen, and giving someone a number, that's a start, but then they have to call the number, and then they have to want to go to the meetings, and then they have to want to change. And without the want to change, it's not going to change.
I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is, and especially as I watched back the conversations that were had at the meeting that I missed, was people asking, well, but do we even have a problem? To me, that says that we need to do some education on a community level so people understand what's happening. And that's kind of where those lunch and learns and stuff come in. Is now we can't drag people there either, believe me.
Right.
Getting people to come to those things is like pulling teeth most times, but at least it's a start to start conversations.
That proposal that you gave out, I guess, a couple weeks ago, are you confident where that proposal will tie into what's coming if we do this, get funding next year, tie into the treatment side of it?
I think it's a really good start.
You can tie them together down the road.
I think so, yeah, I think that's a really good start. It starts by using that Problem Gambling Association to provide some education and resources to not just the community, but to the treatment providers. It's the same thing that Buffalo is doing in Johnson County. Kirk County gave all their money to them to do those kind of things, so it's not like we would be the only one that was doing that. Teton County is doing something very similar, so.
It's good groundwork start.
Yeah, it's a good starting point.
Don, I'm not trying to make light of your situation in the past. I hope you don't take it this way. I think the problem at hand is we have people with a problem, and we have money to try to help people with a problem. And I don't think you can discount the fact that there's going to be people with a problem that are going to continue to snowball. The hope is that some of that funding eventually hits the right place. It's like gambling. We're gambling with the money, I think, and whether it's through education with the newspapers or with VOA or however it is, it's a gamble. It always is, and I think the money's there. It's been allocated for that. We got to give it out to whoever, and I think that personally, if we can hit a number of different areas, it's a good thing to do. It's a thing to do it.
Your points are very valid, and I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying I've seen it firsthand, and dealing with it is so tough, and it's like you're blocked at every
That's why
corner
I've been
you
doing
turn.
this work for 20 years.
Yeah, well,
if we could find an answer, I'd be like, I'll just retire.
It just always amazes me that we have addicts that have been addicts for 20 years, and they think a 30-day program is the answer.
Right.
You're not going to solve the problem doing it that way.
That's why we say
I wish I knew the answer, but I don't. So.
That's why we say people who are in early recovery.
Because this probably won't be very popular. I understand what Christy's saying, but from what I'm hearing, she's saying is we're not quite ready to do some of those other things, and you have to start with education out the gate. I think that's a good start. And I'm still feeling a little bit like Mr. Bonner came to us first with his proposal. It's a very good proposal, very good ads. He brought it, he did the homework, he did the work first, and then I feel like we went backwards and gave other people the chance to bring in a proposal, and it's a little bit like one person did their homework and got it done on time, and then you went, oh, that's not fair, we have to let everybody else have a chance to get their homework done. So I'm still, personally, I'm leaning again, towards giving it to Mr. Bonner because of that, because he did his homework, he got it done first, he brought it to us as a proposal. Bad on us, if he wouldn't have done that, I'm not sure we'd be having this conversation right now.
I'm not gonna disagree that Bob did his homework, but he also created an emergency that didn't exist. And I'm not saying he did that on purpose, it just happened. And I don't think that what happened in that meeting that I attended was a waste of time. I think that there was thought put to it, like, let's use a little bit for this, let's use a little bit for this. And I don't think it was a small amount that was allocated to advertising. 2,500 or something like that or 2,000.
It's much more than that. It's like,
Well, to each entity,
to
right?
each entity, it was much, yeah.
And I think there was other towards training. I don't think it was just a flash in the pan kind of deal, personally. But
I think it was $750. Sorry, you guys, I literally left one Zoom to come here. I think it was $750 to education and right around $1,000 for the lunch and learns, and then around $5,500, if I remember right, for media. So it should be about $2,500 for each Weston County Gazette, newsletter, journal, and then it was less for KASL because just of the nature of the cost. Yeah, that was pretty close to that.
As far as creating an emergency, I don't feel Bob Bonner did that. We had a deadline on when these funds needed to be spent.
no, we do not, Garrett. There is no deadline.
I got the floor, please.
There's no deadline.
And if these funds were going to be used, if there was any emergency created at all, shame on the commissioners, because we've known about this for a year now. We were the ones that should have said, we would like to open this up for proposals and announce that. If that wasn't done on our side, which it wasn't, then that's a shame on us. If Bob knew that this discussion was going to come up for whatever reason, and he felt the need to, on his own, put a proposal out there, I don't feel that Bob was the one creating the emergency. That's my own view.
Mr. Todd.
There was zero deadline whatsoever on this funding. I want to repeat that again. No deadline on this funding. And we didn't have the funding until about January. I mean, this hasn't been a year in the making. We didn't know what we were going to get. I mean, kudos to Bob for putting it together. That's great. I think we're getting into the weeds of entering an area of 5 commissioners with no background on education that I'm aware of, that any of us have, in mental health, deciding how mental health funding is spent. I like Christie's proposal.
The only thing I want to comment on that, Commissioner Todd, is I am not an expert, but I can tell you that I personally spent about $100,000 in rehabs, over 7 different rehabs. And it's been over 12 years, and it's difficult, and it's not. There's some of us that have some experience with it, don't have the answer to fix it, but have tried as many options as we can to try to solve that problem. So I know it's a challenging thing, but it's been right at $100,000 in rehabs, and none of it's worked. None of it. Go ahead. No,
And I'll concede to that. I think it's wonderful that eventually, though, $1 might fix somebody. I mean, it may cost $150,000 and never fix anybody, but I just.
And part of that's just me saying that because he's got to want it, and he doesn't. And there have been some that we've spent very little on, and they have turned it around. But the doors, the blockades that have been there, the courts, and all this stuff, it's a challenge. And I don't know what's right or wrong.
It's like Christy said. It's a forever problem.
All right, what's the board want to do?
I move we award these monies for gambling addiction to Bob Bonner and his team for proper placement of prevention of, well, not prevention, but it would be approving his proposal.
So I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I second that.
I have a motion that's been properly seconded. Discussion. Commissioner Ryan?
With that, with this motion and that proposal, all our eggs are going into one basket. With the 21 Wellness is their proposal, that we're spreading that over 3 different media sources, and a couple other events that we're going to be covering. I mean, we're going to have a lot different, more avenues for the people to look at, you know, to come in. You know, I think it's putting it out there in a lot more different areas. We're using all the media sources we have at our availability and the other proposals from the 21 Wellness.
Any other? All those in favor of the motion on the floor for the funds to go to the Newsletter Journal, Bob Bonner's proposal, please say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
My thought is this is a continual project, I guess, and I would love to see it continue to improve. So we're talking about a 1-year thing. So I'm gonna say yes for the proposal. 3-2, motion passes.
Any other questions for me?
Any other questions?
All right. Thank
Kristen,
you.
thank you, Kristen.
I'm head back to the last meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next, rare earth